Okay, hi guys. So I'm going to do a short demo on getting the background started, and then what I will do is a time lapse finishing the background so that you can speed through it a little bit faster and not have to listen to me talk the entire time. So this is the landscape that I'm using, and this is a personal photo. I have it on the haiku page as well. This is one that I took on a camping trip. We actually camped right here on this beach, and at sunrise I came out of my tent and took this picture. So this is really something that I've been wanting to paint for a while. It'll be fun to do. So as you can see, my background has a gradient. It's going to go from this really bright yellow sun coming up on the horizon, a bright reflection on the water, some lighter at the top, and a little bit of pink to purple at the bottom. So like I said, I'm going to just show you how to get started, and then you can watch the time-lapse version after that, okay? So to get myself started, I actually mixed up some different paint colors, and here's my palette. So I took a look at what I'm seeing in my sunset, or sunrise rather, and trying to prepare myself to have all these colors ready, because my acrylic is not necessarily gonna stay wet and paintable for very long. So again, if you're going to work in sessions, make sure that you are preserving your paint by putting a wet paper towel in the middle and the palette cover. I also have a couple different brushes here, and I have just some rags to wipe my brushes on as well. I have water ready to go, and I also again have some extra brushes to work with. So I'm going to start off with the bright yellow sun, and I'm going to get a layer going on this. And also keep in mind, I have all these pencil grid lines. On the first layer of paint, they might show through just a little bit, but I'm going to do 2 layers on this canvas, so I will be able to go back and kind of clean those up and cover them up. Now, if you need to lighten up your pencil lines, now's a good time to do it before you paint. Acrylic is very thick, very opaque, as you can see, and it's going to cover pretty easily. So I go around and I'm going to make sure that I smooth out my paint layers. At this point, I need to wipe my brush on the side of my paper towel and then just keep blending the excess. So as I move into my next color, I am going to just wipe my brush. And then what I actually need to get into is this little bit of yellow-orange. So it's going to make a big difference between the lemony yellow and then this kind of golden yellow that goes around it. So I'm going to start by painting just a really defined outline like this, and then take some of this yellow paint and blend it in. So, pretty simple to begin with. Here's where I want to wipe off my brush, and I'm going to adjust this just a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to see closer. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to blend the line between the bright yellow and the dark yellow, and I'm using very soft pressure and a brush that has been wiped so that it is not loaded up with paint. And I'm using a circular technique because, of course, the sun is circular. So, following the contour. Here's where the first layer, you could do a good job and get a really nice blend, but you may also need to go back and give it a second layer of paint to hide some of those blending mistakes and tighten that up just a little bit. The other thing I can do is I can actually get some more of the lighter color on my brush and just graze over the darker color like this to blend it. And then you can see it's a little bit brighter in the center. As I go around, the color starts to soften a little bit. You can see that it's darker on the outside, and then it's going to softly fade to that bright color. So now I'm going to take some more of this dark yellow, and you might be noticing it's a little bit of a back and forth between the two colors, but I want to create a fade. I'm not quite there yet, so get some more of that light color. And I just keep working on blending. You can see this edge right here where I need to tighten up my circle and work on this blend just a little bit here. Okay, so now what I need to start doing with this darker yellow is expanding a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is pull it out in a little bit more of a linear style, kind of like that. So as I get more paint going, pull this out. This is another good way to flatten out my paint. Spread that out like this. Okay, this is also a good time to change brushes, because for this part I was using a round brush to get around the circle, and now that I'm getting into more of the linear part of the painting, I'm going to want to switch to my flat brush here. So take one of these, grab the color that I'm using here, which is this one, and the water will help just to thin it out a little bit. So now what I want to do is work on pulling out the yellow like this, and as I add my orange, it's going to start blending with the yellow, which you'll see in just a second. Okay. Kind of like this. Alright, so now wipe the brush. Here's where it's handy to have one of these, just kind of like old t-shirts, but now I'm going to start going in with a little bit. Actually, before I add another color, what I want to do is take just my brush, and acrylics and gradients look really good when they're layered over each other. So I'm going to spread this paint out just a little bit thinner before I move on, and then you'll watch how it blends really nicely. As you get to the edge of your section of canvas, like I did right here, what I'm going to want you to do is take and lift it gently, and you're going to take the brush and just wrap the paint color around the sides. Gives it a nicer finishing effect when you're done. If you make sure that you do paint those sides of your canvas, you'll see when you're finished, kind of tidies things up. Okay, so here's where I want to go back, and I'm going to blend a little bit more around my sun. And then don't forget, your layer 2 is going to help to kind of finish up the look of your blending, okay? And when I'm blending like this, I'm using a really light pressure, almost like I'm feathering, so I'm barely pushing against the canvas with the paintbrush. So now that I've thinned out this yellow and kind of spread it a little bit here, this is my horizon line right here, so I'm going to end up going down to a little bit of pink and then a little bit of purple down here. But also, while I'm in here, there is just a little bit, again, if this is my horizon line, there is a little bit of the reflection of the sun like this. And comes down to about this area right here. So I'm just going to put that in right now, and then I'm going to move on. You can see that I'm leaving a gap for that purple that's going to appear down at the bottom. So now I'm going to grab a little bit of my peachy orange color, and I'm going to start by taking a look. And while I'm doing this demo, I have my image up on my computer screen so that I don't have to keep looking at my phone. But as you can see, I'm going to start to go in here with the orange, just a tiny bit down here, because then it's going to quickly start to turn to pink. So I take the orange and I start to layer it in a little bit of a zigzag going around the yellow, because the yellow kind of pulls away from the brightest part of the sun. So I just take my flat brush and I'm going sideways like this and blending all this color together. So this almost creates that glazing effect that you guys learned in the watercolor project with Miss B. And then if you look closely, okay, if I'm really kind of careful and mind where I'm adding this next color, you can see the color under it and you're not going to lose it, okay? So just kind of watch your image as you paint to make sure that you don't overdo it. And then periodically you're going to want to wipe off your brush. Doesn't mean you have to always rinse it. Sometimes it's a good idea to just wipe the brush but let a little bit of the paint color still be there. Take a look at your image. Again, make sure you're blending the right parts, leaving just a little streakiness of the yellow. And I can go back over this again and add a little bit more. And then I'll go and smooth this out just a little bit underneath. This is really going to be a lot of pink when it's all said and done, but I can just go ahead and softly blend that. So when I really want to be careful with the details, I can even switch back to my round brush that has a little more precision to it. And I got just a little bit more of this orange paint, just so I can get these flares and lines around the yellow sun. And then blend them softly. So when I blend this like this, I don't use very hard pressure because I'm going to move too much paint around. So just be careful. What you don't want to do is push as hard as you can and wipe up the paint, okay? And if you find that you cover too much of a color, acrylic is really forgiving, especially when you are patient and you let it dry just a little bit. You can come back into it and go over some areas that you may have overdone just a little bit, okay? So just keep that in mind. So now, if I move from orange into my pink, you can see that I've got my pink ready to go, even a little bit of the purple. A lot of this pink color is actually underneath here like this. And it's going to look really harsh at first. Don't be too afraid of it, because if you use a very light pressure, you'll be able to blend that. It looks just a little bit intimidating right now as you start. And then just kind of look at how far up does that color go. So as you can see, as I pull the paint away like this, when it starts to dry out like that, that's your clue to stop and go back and get some more paint. Light feathery touch right here, not too harsh on the canvas. And then you still see a little bit of the grid line showing through. This is where later I'm going to go back and with my second layer of paint, I'll be able to cover that up. Okay, so here I'm going to start to blend the pink, just smooth out the layer. Once I get to a point where I'm far enough away, I can switch back to my larger brush again. and then just kind of pull the pink zigzag like this over the yellow. So this is a good time for me to wet my paintbrush so that I can keep going here and sort of feather out this color. So with acrylic you have to work a little bit faster. It's a little bit faster than I am comfortable with, a little more used to the oil paints, but what's nice again about the acrylic is that when it does dry quickly, you can go back over it, okay? So don't be afraid if layer 1 is a little bit rough. Just let it dry, make sure your layers are smooth so that when you do paint over it with more color, it's not going to look bumpy when you cover it up, okay? So you'll see that after a while this all kind of blends nicely, but you just need to work on it gradually, okay? So this is like, look at, this is 15 minutes. I'm going slowly. I know I'm explaining a lot of it to you, but I don't have a lot done, okay? So the whole point of this is go slowly. I'll start the time-lapse portion of this so that you can see me work through the rest of it a little bit faster, okay? But what I'm doing is layer 1 on just the background, okay? Thanks.